The Hades and Persephone retellings. They ain't got nobody else to talk about. They ain't got no other Greek goddesses to talk about. Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today we will be reviewing Neon Gods by Katie Robert. Yeah, this one. The cover is so pretty. I just had to say that. I had to start off with that. The cover is so nice. I really like. I love me some neon sparkly bright lights. This was a TikTok recommendation from like a good couple months ago. I'm not gonna lie, it might have been a year ago since I saw the video that had this recommendation in it. It was a TikTok about a dark, spicy romance. And I think they described it as, you know, if you like Hades and Persephone and like Greek mythology, you'd want to read this book. And now thinking back at it, that makes me mad. Like, that makes me upset. But anywho, I'm going to describe why that makes me mad later. Let's start off with the synopsis. This time, I'm going to read from the back of the book because if you guys have seen my last two videos, you know that I'm not good at recounting a plot from the top of my head. Like, it doesn't roll off the dome. So I'm going to spare you this time. So there's three different parts. There's this part, and the bottom part. So the first part says, he was supposed to be a myth, but from the moment I crossed the river Styx and fell under his dark spell, he was quite simply mine. So I'm going to assume that that's from Persephone's standpoint. You feel me? Okay. The synopsis goes, Society darling Persephone Demetriou, not sure how you pronounce the last name, I might butcher it throughout this video, but Persephone Demetriou plans to escape the ultra-modern city of Olympus and start over far from the backstabbing politics of the 13 houses. But all that's ripped away when her mother ambushes her with an engagement to Zeus, the dangerous power behind their glittering city's dark facade. With no options left, Persephone flees to the forbidden Undercity and makes a devil's bargain with a man she once believed a myth, a man who awakens her to a world she never knew existed. Hades has spent his life in shadows, and he has no intention of stepping into the light. But when he finds that Persephone can offer a little slice of the revenge he's spent years craving, it's all the excuse he needs to help her, for a price. Yet every breathless night spent tangled together has given Hades a taste for Persephone, and he'll go to war with Olympus itself to keep her close. ... Then the bottom part says, a modern retelling of Hades and Persephone that's as sinful as it is sweet. Okay, let me put this down. We're gonna get into it. Before we get into it, I'm gonna give you guys a little backstory about, you know, the kind of inner workings of the book and of the Govy and everything that's going on. The front part of the book, as you can see, chapter 1, they have a map of Olympus as it is. So you can see there's sea here, so it's on a coast, and the city is cut in half by the river Styx. This is the upper city, and you can see like the different people. Well, not the different people. There are apparently 13 houses in this book, and I'm going to explain that after, but 12 of them are up here, and you can see only Hades is in the lower city, and there are little bridges, right? Okay, so apparently the city is run by 13 titles. Of the 13, 3 of them are legacy titles. I'm going to read out which ones the 13 titles are because I did put it in my notes. So there's Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, Demeter, Athena, Ares, Dionysus, Hermes, Artemis, Apollo, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, and Hades. So Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon are the only 3 legacy titles, which means that when someone who currently holds that title has a child, an heir, then when that person dies, the child kind of goes up, kind of like a royal family type thing, where the heir ascends to the position. Yeah, like that. The rest of them, it seems like they can either like fight for the title or like get voted in, except for Hera's title. Hera's title is given to whoever is married to Zeus at the time. So it's not like I have to get voted in or I'm born into this. It's a title of marriage, and it's the only one like that from what we know so far. Other than that, I don't really think that there's anything else to explain. I'm gonna get into some of the stuff that really annoyed me in this book because it's not like I can describe too much of the plot to you. It's a generic, if you've ever watched or read like a mafia romance with a seemingly bad boy on the outside but really soft, gushy, romantic on the inside, and a girl who portrays a personality that she is, innocent and sweet and all of that, but on the inside she really wants to be dominated. That's how it's, you know how it goes. We know how it goes in a certain book about a certain shades of a certain color, So it's kind of like that, except with voyeurism. Like, basically, that is all how I would explain that. But for something that was marketed, I don't know if it was marketed at the time, but for me, it was recommended as a Hades and Persephone retelling, and all of it is just, it's so weird because they seem like mortals who just kind of take up the titles. Like somebody decided that they were going to get a plot of large land, make a city out of it, and decide that they're going to make the government rules off, the names of Greek gods and goddesses. It was so confusing. So I wrote down in my notes, my little, handy dandy notes about some stuff that was kind of confusing to me. First thing was with the subtle but not great references to both things in modern pop culture and Greek mythology. So in this book, Demeter has 4 daughters: Persephone, Psyche, Callisto, and Eurydice. Right? Okay. Persephone in this book isn't an innocent virginal goddess. She's just painted as one in the media by her mother trying to control her reputation. In this, I don't know what her mother told Zeus, but it's very obvious that that girl has done the deed before. Because even when she did it with Hades the first time, she was not new to this, okay? So there's that. Moving along. Psyche isn't Eros's lost love. She's Demeter's daughter, because we know the story about Psyche and Eros. That's not how that goes there. Apparently, the next book, which I also bought when I bought this book, so now I have to read it, Electric Idol, I think that one is about Psyche and Eros. And I think it's that the whole thing is that Aphrodite sent Eros to murk Psyche, but he fell in love with. Yeah, that's how that goes in mythology, but we'll see how that goes. We will see. I really don't want to read it, but Minth is Hades' right-hand woman, sort of. Not really like right hand, but she works very closely with Hades' right-hand man. And not his lover in this book. She only has, I think, maximum 4. And that might be pushing it. That might be generous. 4 interactions with Persephone in this book. And they're not huge. Like, I can't blame her for how annoyed she was in one of the interactions, because when Persephone got there, Hades ordered Minth to provide her with some clothes from her closet, and he'd reimburse her because Persephone did not have any clothes. She ran. She literally escaped over the bridge to go into the lower city. So I can understand why Minth was upset at that one. I get that. The next one is Hades. If you know any of the mythology, you know that he's very scarred all over his body because he was eaten by Kronos, who is not mentioned in this story at all. But in this story, Zeus caused Hades scars in a fire that killed his parents. Yeah, right. Those were some of the stuff that were a little bit confusing. Some of the other things that were confusing in regards to mortal culture is when Hades was getting ready to bring Persephone down to his little, dungeon. And she came out with her hair fashioned like Princess Leia, and an outfit that looked like a swimsuit that Princess Leia had or something like that. Don't judge me, I've never watched Star Wars, but they made a reference to it, and I was like, when have you guys ever watched Star Wars? Like, when has this happened? Or on page 250, when he kind of refers to Persephone as someone who looks like she looks like a spring goddess, and I'm like, okay. Anyways, whew. She reveals to him that she's on birth control and IUD, and I'm just like, where did you get this from? Like, is this something that you guys import? And if so, do the people who import these things have an issue coming into the city and leaving the city, or do you just get like drop-offs right at the border where the pressure starts? I'm a little confused. It's not explained though. And in chapter 22, we get to understand that Persephone and her family didn't even live in Olympus when her mother became Demeter. They were living on like a farm, because Persephone is thinking back and she's like, oh, well, you know, I really liked it when they went to the pet store and they were looking at dogs, and I'm like, okay, cool. She's really happy because she's remembering a time when her and her sisters used to play on the farm with dogs and blah blah blah. And I'm like, so you and your sisters did not grow up in Olympus? When did you guys move over there? That's not something that's explained in the book either. Yeah, the whole political environment of this book is a little confusing, but that's not the only confusing thing that I found about this book. Other than it being a typical mafia, kinky, voyeuristic romance type thing, I was really confused at how time moved in this book, because I wrote in my notes, how is time progressing in this book? At one point, Persephone is saying that it's been weeks of them interacting and her getting to know the lower city. But close to the end of the book, in chapter 24, it's revealed that it's only been a month and they have 2 months left until the deadline. So all of this is happening in the span of 4 weeks. And by this point, Persephone and Hades had already had the conversation about her moving into his room, and they're talking about a bunch of different things and adopting puppies and all of that. And I'm like, how are you guys doing this in the span of 4 weeks? Like, you have not passed a probationary period. This is so weird. So the time span, the weird mentions of Greek mythology, like jumping in and out of wanting the characters to be true to what they are in traditional Greek mythology, as well as it being modern, that's not balanced very well here. 2 more issues that I have that I will be getting into are how they kind of portrayed Hades, as well as continuity in this book. But we'll start off with how they portrayed Hades. Initial annoyance with how they portrayed Hades doesn't really have anything to do with how they portrayed him in regards to the Greek mythology. It's how Hades' character is described and then the difference with his actions. Because I think that the story would have benefited more if Hades didn't just grab Persephone and welcome her with open arms and whatever. I think I would have enjoyed it more if there was a progression with him opening up with her, instead of just bam, caring for her as soon as she was halfway across the bridge. Because after she ran off in the beginning of the book, when she leaves the party and runs off and is being chased by Zeus's guys and gets to the bridge and starts going over, she can see Hades on the other side of the bridge, and he's like beckoning for her to come, like open arms, all of that type stuff. And I'm like, is this not somebody who is supposed to have an aversion to everybody else, like keep everyone at an arm's length, you know, the traumatized, scarred, bad boy type vibe, someone who doesn't really trust Zeus? Like, I understand you see this woman and she's being chased by Zeus's men and you want to help her, but after you find out that she's Zeus's new fiance, I would think she's scared, but I also would probably be a little hesitant. Like, even bringing her, like lifting her, because he saw that she was injured, she was running over glass. Even bringing her to his house, I personally would not have done that. If Zeus, like, my history with Zeus is him burning down my house and murking my parents just because he didn't like my dad, I would not have let his new fiance into my house and like sat her on the bed, dressed her wounds, leave her in the house, all of that stuff. I would have brought her to a hospital and assign some guards to stay with her and go talk to her the next day. That's what I would have done. But I am not Hades in this scenario, so I'ma just leave it at that. But I thought it was doing okay. It was doing okay. It wasn't doing great, but it was doing okay up until the point where I got to where they were talking about, oh, she's only supposed to stay there for 3 months, but then all of this is progressing. Then bam, they release on us, oh, you only have like 2 months left, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, is this all happening in a month? Is everything in this happening in a month? You're opening up your bedroom to her. Like, yeah, they're sleeping together. That was a part of the deal. But like, you're opening up your bedroom for her. You're sitting in the bed, cuddling, sleeping, clearing out half of your closet, waiting for her to get in there. And I'm just super confused because, his character was just, I think it was handled poorly, personally. I think that if, not even if the book was longer, but if it took place in a longer time span, not even like 3 months, if it took place like 6 months, I could understand it. But everything just seemed like it was moving so fast for the time that they're telling us it's happening. Before I get to the continuity part, I just have to touch on a little thing that kind of irritated me with how they dealt with Persephone in this. So I wrote in my notes, sorry, why did it take 164 pages for us to get even the slightest description of Persephone's features? At first, I thought the author was leaving it ambiguous so that we, as the reader, could put ourselves in Persephone's place and imagine that Hades is doing all of this to us, until they actually had Hades start describing her a little. Like, why did it take 164 pages for us to know that she's blonde? Why is it that on page 249, Hades describes her with dark brows? Like, isn't she blonde? That's kind of part of the whole ambiguity, like continuity thing that I was referring to, because like, if she's blonde, like a natural blonde, and you say that her skin is like sunshine, she looks like a sunshiny person, why does she have dark eyebrows? But anywho, that was just something that really irritated me, because why is it that halfway through the book is when I'm getting to understand what Persephone looks like? I'm so confused. Let's touch on the last aspect of this video, which is continuity, which is not a thing in this book. My notes say, is there no continuity in this book? Did they not have an editor or beta readers? Because on page 88, it said that Charon is Andreas's grandson, but on page 306, it says that Charon herded his uncle out of the room. I'm confused. That happens quite a bit in this book, where they say something and then something else happens. And I'm like, that was just one of the really huge things where I got to the end and Hades was asking Charon, his right-hand man, to escort Andreas, his dad's right-hand man, out of a room. And he's just like, oh yeah, Charon herded his uncle out of the room. And I had to stop. Like, it pulled me right out of the story. I had to stop and flip back to the front where we're first introduced to Andreas and Charon in the first place. And Hades explains to us that Andreas describing Charon in this way is weird, considering that he's his biological grandson. Is he his grandson or is he his uncle? I'm confused. Please, I'm not. But yeah, that's really how it was for most of the book. I was just super confused as to what is going on. Even quarter way through the book, when I just determined that I was not going to think about this as a Hades and Persephone retelling, which is really hard considering that all of them have names of people prominent in Greek mythology. I'm like, okay, let me just consider this a story. It was still confusing to me because what the hell is going on? So yeah, I am probably gonna have to read Electric Idol because I bought it. I'm gonna stop doing that. And I really don't want to read any more Hades and Persephone retellings, but I did also buy the trilogy, the A Touch of Darkness trilogy. So I'm gonna have to read that. And I swear to God, if it is another mafia type romance, I know that it's supposed to be spicy. So we'll see. The spice in this book was okay. What I really liked about Hades is how, like, the emphasis that he puts on consent. I really, really liked that. I enjoyed that so much. So much. I'm glad that he really drilled into Persephone that she does not have to do anything she doesn't want to. At any point in time, she can say no and she can stop and everything will stop. She does not have to feel pressured to do anything. I really, really loved that. Loved it. But yeah, I have another book on my Kindle that I'm reading called Court of Shadows by C.N. Crawford. I think that's gonna be, I don't know if it's gonna be my next one, but I am currently reading it. This might come before Electric Idol, but we'll see how that goes. You know, we'll see where the wind takes me, because currently the wind is taking me to, girl, you need to go study for your midterms. So I will see y'all in the next one. Let me know if you've ever read this and you had the same confusion as me. Please let me know in the comments. But I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!